Voila. Yes. All right. Thank you for your patience. Today we have with us from the ICA and a couple of his guests. And they're going to talk a little bit about crime analysis and careers in crime analysis and kind of educate you on that. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask. We're streaming this on Periscope, so for those of you who are following me on Twitter, it's mFaculty, which is mobile faculty, and well, that's about it. So without further ado.
All right, thank you. Hi guys, and welcome some of you again who have to sit through this for a second time. I'm Kyle Stoker. I'm the crime analyst at the Raytown Police Department. I'm going to let my associate introduce herself in just a second, but we are from an organization called MARCAN. That's the Mid-America Regional Crime Analysis Network, and we're here to talk to you about what crime analysis is and why you might be interested in it as a position. Just a little bit of background about myself. I've been a crime analyst at Raytown for almost 6 years. Before that, I was a sworn officer for Olathe, Kansas for just under 3 years. I have a BS in Justice Studies from Pittsburgh State University. My city is a suburb of Kansas City. We have about 30,000 people, and we're a veteran community, so we don't have a noticeable rise in daytime population. And we have about 50 officers. So you want to introduce yourself, then we'll get started.
All right. I'm Sabrina Cox. I'm from the Olathe, Kansas Police Department. I've been an analyst there for about 4 years now. Prior to that, I wasn't an officer or anything like that. I actually came from the private sector. So Olathe is about 132,000 people. We have about 172 total sworn between patrol and investigations. We are mainly a bedroom community, but we're growing as a place to work as well. So we are seeing more.
Interesting than we do.
Yeah. So other than that, that's.
Alrighty. So before we can talk about what crime analysis is, we have to talk about what crime analysis is not. And so those of you who have not sat through this before, does anybody have any guesses on what it is? No cheating if you've heard it before. Anybody? No? Okay. Well, it's not. It's not CSI. It's not Minority Report. It's not NCIS. We're not out there swabbing for DNA on stuff. We don't deal with dead bodies. We don't deal with evidence or any of that kind of stuff. What it is a systematic method of collecting and analyzing data to help police departments work more effectively with the information that they have. So we've got this whole cycle here. We're collecting data, whether that be in the form of 911 calls from the public, incident reports that police officers are writing, accident reports. We get data from a whole bunch of different sources. We're organizing that and analyzing it into something useful, and then we're disseminating that back to our police department so that they can use that to target specific offenders or target specific problems, things like that. Evaluation is a really important part of that sometimes people leave off. We have to know whether we're doing a good job at what we're doing. If we're doing something and it's not effective, then we need to rethink what we're doing and try a different method. There are 4 types of crime analysis generally accepted, and we're going to go in each one of these in more detail. We have tactical analysis, operational, strategic, and administrative. And Sabrina's going to start us off with tactical.
So tactical, this is something that we're doing every day. It kind of really focuses on short-term problems, looking at forum patrol or investigations. Often it's looking at emerging patterns or series, repeat incidents, high-profile crimes, that sort of thing. So for an example, this is one that Kansas City put out that they were doing. This is you want to talk about this one?
Yeah, so this is,
you worked a little more on it.
Right, so this is actually a type of analysis called threshold analysis. And what it does is, I don't know how well you can read some of the things on this left-hand page over here, but what it does is they determine, using statistical methods that I won't go into because they're rather boring, but they determine what is normal for any one area of town in any one time frame, and they break these up into 4-week periods. So they have determined that it's normal for them to have, if you look at the very top row, if you can read it, it's normal for them to have 4 to 5 stealings from autos in any 4-week period. So since they know what's normal, if they have above that, if they have something abnormal, then that's a clue that, hey, maybe we should look a little bit in more detail into what's going on. We should, there's something that's going on here. This allows them, there's such a big department that there's no way that they can read every report that's going on. I don't know, do you read every report?
I do.
Yeah, okay. I wasn't sure if you were kind of quite on the edge. My department is small enough, I can read every single police report that's written by my officers. Kansas City is enormous. They just do not have the manpower so that they can read every single report. So they rely on things like this to kind of help them keep a thumb on the pulse of what's going on. Because otherwise things would go by the wayside. So when you have something that's abnormal, so for example, for this report, they had 8, and normally they have 4 to 5, so 8's a pretty big jump. When they have an abnormal response like that, they're going to pull those 8 reports and look and see what's going on about those reports that they can look into and see what the difference is. This example on the right-hand side is, this is actually about burglary, not about car or stealings from autos, but they've determined that these burglaries in this little map, they're all related. They're giving, you probably can't read it, but they're giving some information to their officers on when they're happening and what they should be paying attention for. They've developed a suspect from the reports. So this is the kind of tactical product that they can give to their officers so that they know what they need to be on the lookout for. And then the next one, I just do another example.
Yeah, so this is a bulletin that I actually sent out to our officers as well as to our Metro list. We have a Metro list circuit where it goes to other like detectives and analysts. We had a break-in at one of our Chinese restaurants where the suspect, we actually got some decent pictures of him. They're decent-ish, I guess, the best you can get from surveillance at night. And he was breaking in and stealing the cash register. We went to a Metro meeting and found, I talked with some other people, some other agencies, and had some similar MO. They didn't have pictures, so I pushed this out as these could be a series that are all possibly connected, which actually, I think it was last year, after he's committed several more, we ended up arresting this guy, so he has been caught and everything.
Oh,
with
good,
his little Sasquatch
When we
picture.
did it on Monday, we I couldn't remember what the outcome was, so.
Yeah, it took a while, but yeah, it was last year. It took him about over a year because he was hitting he would break in several in a couple of, like a month span, and then you wouldn't hear from him again, and he'd break into several more. So we finally got him last year.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. So the next type is operational analysis, and this is something, yes, go ahead.
Real quick on the tactical analysis, with that being day to day, do you, and this may actually not fall under it, do you also analyze like speeding or traffic violations and find patterns where there's high traffic violations of a certain type?
That can actually fall under, you could consider that either operational or administrative.
Okay.
In terms of, we have a lot of accidents in this particular intersection, our traffic officers should spend more time here, or this is a good target for speeding tickets or something like that. I mean,
We'll use it a lot for like DUIs, like when they're going to do their check lanes. I will run where we've had our most DUI arrests, and then that way they can kind of use that to help set up their DUI check lanes in those areas.
yeah. But that, like I said, I think it would fall more under operational or probably more operational than administrative. But tactical is really for criminal activity in terms of you have a burglary series, you have a robbery series, or you've had a rape or a murder or something like that. That's immediate. Your guys need to know stuff right now on what's going on, and that's what you're trying to provide to your officers. So going back to operational analysis, this is a little bit. It's still not very long term, but it's a little bit more long term than tactical. This is maybe weekly or monthly. You can do it on a little bit more long term, like 6 months or a year if you wanted to, but it's still fairly short term. What you're doing is trying to make sure that we're deploying our officers, our resources in the most effective way possible. People often overestimate how many officers are on the street at any one time. I don't remember what Olathe is like now, but in Raytown, Like I said, we have about 30,000 people. We typically only have 3 to 4 officers on duty at any one time. It depends. On the daytime, it's going to be a little bit higher because we have a couple of traffic officers, but at night, there's not very many guys out there.
Our minimums are 11 to 13.
Yeah, so you're going to have one officer for 10,000 people, 15,000 people, something like that. So since we do have a much smaller number of resources than people think we do, we have to make sure that we're using them in the most effective way. And this is one way that we can do this. So this is a product that I put together for my officers. We had, and this kind of bridges the gap between tactical and operational. This could really kind of fall under either one. But we had 5 incidents where thieves were cutting AT&T phone lines so that they could get to the copper inside because they can sell the copper for a pretty decent amount of money. And it was a fairly short time frame. I think it was a couple of months. And they just kept going back and over and over and over again, hitting the same places. You can see on this map, they hit this one place 3 times, and these other places a couple of times. This spot here is what is shown on the map here. And it costs hundreds of thousands of dollars for AT&T to fix this over and over and over again. Not to mention it's also a risk to public safety because then when the phone lines are down, people can't call 911 and that kind of thing.
It's a risk to the criminal as well, too. I've seen some of those photos, it's just a pool of...
Yes, and that's
flesh.
absolutely right. I have seen some pretty gruesome photos where they have managed to cook themselves completely crisp. But they're thinking about their next high, and so they don't really care too much. So I put this bulletin together. I worked with there's a AT&T like loss prevention guy who's really active in our area. He's a retired Johnson County detective. They actually were able to set up some alarms on the lines themselves, so that when the lines got cut, it would automatically call our dispatch within, I think, like 30 seconds, and it would run this automated message that said, okay, this is an AT&T alarm, and it's been cut at this certain place. Well, I wanted my officers to know where the alarms were, where the lines were, and then where the offenders might be going to and from. So what this is, if you can't read this text here, what this is showing is that up here they have a locked gate, so they're not going to be able to get into this parking lot here. But the suspects have cut holes through the fence in here, and there's also places in the tree line here where there's gaps where they can run through. So if they get an alarm at this location, I want my officers to be set up kind of around this way because the suspects are going to be fleeing in that direction. So that kind of gives, it's kind of a pre-planning thing. So instead of, oh crap, we have an alarm, where do we need to go? We've already thought about that, and my guys know, hey, we have an alarm, okay, the plan is to go, you're going to go here, you're going to go there, you're going to go there, and hopefully find somebody. In this particular instance, the alarm never went off because they never went back and cut it, so we never got to find out how well the plan worked. Here's a couple more operational analysis products. These are from Kansas City. This is a map of these areas here are their beats that they assign to their officers. The little yellow dots are property damage, and the car icons are stealing from auto. And so what they're trying to show here, and then these are for the same crimes. This is showing days of the week. This is showing, these are each dates, so you can see how many are occurring on each date. So like on 10/27, they had 10. This is a combination of, it's showing days of the week down the side, and then hours of the day along the bottom. So you can look at it together. If you just looked at one or the other, you might think that Monday is the most common time, but it's actually Monday at like 10 o'clock at night. So Monday into Tuesday night is kind of when you're going to want to be paying attention. So this map is called a temporal topology because it puts the hour and the day of the week together, so you can see kind of where these hot spots are. So strategic analysis.
So this is performed less frequently. It's awfully monthly or annually. You kind of focus on chronic issues. Like for us, we had a motel that was an issue that we tried to figure out what the issue was. We were having prostitution there, drug dealing, and how we can combat the issue, not just police, but normally we bring in, like we brought in codes, we tried to deal with the owner itself, yeah, kind of figuring out with him if he's taking copies of driver's license and everything. So often it's a detailed problem analysis, special reports on persistent hotspots, long-term crime prevention strategy type issues. So this is
Yeah, do you want me to?
yeah.
Okay.
I'll let you know.
So like she said earlier, we're looking at long-term problems and we're trying to come up with long-term solutions. It's kind of like if you have a broken bone and you just keep taking pain meds to treat the pain, that doesn't actually heal the bone. That doesn't do anything for the actual wound itself. If you put a cast on it and you splint it, or what, you have surgery to put a pin in or something, you're actually going to heal the break, and then therefore you won't have to take the pain meds anymore. A lot of times in policing, sometimes our patrol guys just go arrest the problem, and then that doesn't really deal with the underlying issue. So strategic analysis can help you figure out what the underlying issue is, and hopefully you won't have to keep expending resources. So this map on the left-hand side is it's called a risk terrain model. And what risk terrain modeling does is it looks at geographic factors that may affect every crime. Every crime type, whether that be burglary, robbery, assault, whatever it is influenced by different factors. You can't have an assault where you don't have people. Assault, a good example where you have, there are studies that have shown that where you have a large number of bars, where you have liquor stores, where you have gang shootings, those are all factors that can influence where you might be more likely to have future gang shootings, because you have people that are drinking, you've already had gang shootings there, so it's likely that you've had conflicts between people. It may be gang territory that they're fighting over, that kind of thing. For robbery, it may be ATMs where people are getting cash out. It may be bus stops where they're getting on and off the bus. They can get away easily. There's people coming through. So what you can do is you create these maps that, like you have a map of all your bus stops, you have a map of all your ATMs, you have a map of all your liquor stores. It depends on what problem you're looking at. And then you combine them all together to create this risk score. So I'm not sure what crime type this is. I think this might be violent crime. But what it's showing is these hotter areas, the red areas, are showing where the risk is higher, where you're more likely to have more violent crime. So it's a predictive model that allows you to deploy your resources a little bit better. The one on the right is a 28-day comparison of where things have already happened. So it's not predictive, it's descriptive. It takes the 28-day period and it breaks it up into 14 days. So it's showing the change from one 2-week period to the next 2-week period. The blue is where crime has decreased, and red is where it has increased. And so what we want to do with this is figure out, well, what did we do in these blue areas? Did we do something specific? Did we arrest somebody? Did we deploy more officers? What happened here that made the crime go down? And once we figured out what happened, then is that something that we can apply in these other places, like this big red spot here? But the other question is, did we just move it? Did we just displace it from here to here? That happens a lot of times. You didn't necessarily suppress it. You just moved it from one place to the other. So that's something that we want to take a look at.
And we found that out too with our motel when we started hitting our one problem motel. They moved to one of our other motels, and granted, crime still went down, but because displacement never is 1-for-1, it actually does decrease crime. But
Right.
we still then all of a sudden this problem spot moved over to this problem spot. So
Yes.
What does that area represent? Is that the total jurisdiction of the?
This map here.
Yeah.
Since it's Kansas City, it's a pretty small spot. So this is 70 Highway here, and this is Van Brunt coming down this way. So I don't know if any of you are familiar with.
Center zone,
Yeah.
the southeast corner.
And I think this is the same. I'm pretty sure this is the same thing. Yeah. So
So
we
those
had
are
a
just like
representative from Kansas City here.
beat areas that a patrol might
Yeah,
be on?
so that's what, like where it says 332, 334, or 343, 344, those are beat areas that they
Okay.
assign to their officers. I don't know, I'm not familiar with them to know how many beat areas they assign to one officer, but yeah, that's how they,
Actually, that'll be East Zone, if those are the threes.
yeah,
East Zone is 300.
so.
Okay, thanks.
So a lot of what we end up doing, I think more the tactical and strategic is more the fun stuff, but to help our department actually run smoothly, we end up doing a lot of administrative analysis. So really this is focusing on the needs of our police department or the agency itself. We're looking at statistics, maps, charts, anything that can help with staffing levels for certain times. For one of my projects I end up having to do is that we have 4 districts in Olathe, and I had to go through and actually look at the districts and look at our response time for that area and to see if we need to make one district a little bit bigger, a little one smaller, to try to get our response time, our time on call, that information. So this is where we spend a lot of our time. It's not the fun stuff, but it helps our department actually run more smoothly. So, I don't know if you want to...
Okay. This one on the left is another example from Kansas City, and what it's showing is he's trying to justify that they need more staffing in their real-time crime center in specific times of the day. So the charts are showing these are hours of the day along the bottom, and so what he's arguing is that, hey, we don't really need people between like 4 to 7 because it's pretty low, or we have enough people. I don't know what their current staffing level was, but it gets pretty busy here later in the day in the evening shift. So we should probably have more staff members during that time period. So that's, you can use these statistics to try to justify certain proposals or grants or something like that. This one is another example of a temporal topology. Again, you have days of the week across the top and hours of the day down the bottom. This one's from Lenexa, and this is showing their calls for service. So again, kind of like common sense, blue is cooler, is lower, and red is hotter. So it's a really easy way to see just off the top of your bat that, hey, later in the week and later in the day is when we need more officers. We don't really need as many people on real early in the morning, like from 3 to 6. It's pretty dead right then. We don't need too many officers then, but we do need more here later in the day. So that's one way that, like she said, a lot of administrators will ask for stuff like this to help them make proposals, make changes. Yes?
You said, like, in the red section, you need more officers.
Yes.
But this, in the beginning of your work, you said maybe for like 50,000 people, there's like 3 or 4.
Yeah, and that's one thing that, okay, so your first instinct may to be just to assign the same number of officers on every shift. So you have like 4 on days, 4 on evenings, 4 on mids. But really, what the data shows is that you should maybe think about having 5 on evenings, 2 on mids, and 4 on days, or something. It doesn't have to be equal distribution. It could be that you have more officers working on one shift than another. And even though you may have done that in the past, you may want to do things differently in the future. I mean, cities change pretty drastically over time, and so you may realize that, like, hey, we've been doing it this way, but that doesn't make a lot of sense. We need to change. So that may be what a product like this would be for.
Well, and we moved from them working 5/8 shifts to working 4/10s, and that kind of helped where we have the same amount of officers per shift, but we have a bigger overlap in these evening hours. So like our days guys come on at 2, but our other guys don't come off until 5. So you have some overlap, and then evenings they work until midnight, but then midnights come on at 9. So you have some overlap hours in some of these hotter times. So you can play around with hours.
You can kind of double dip a little bit by having both shifts on at the same time. So it's just an easy way to visually look at it and make sure that your manpower matches up with what your actual activity is like. So, okay. So this chart is going to kind of show how the different types of analysis interact. So again, down at the bottom, when you have immediate incidents, you're going to make tactical products. Those are going to your officers, because your officers are they're the very first line. You've probably heard that before. They're the first line. They're the first ones that the citizens encounter. They're the first ones that the criminals encounter. They're the first resources that we're going to deploy. So your tactical products are going to those first line officers. When it comes to operational products, it's still going to go to your officers, but it may go through a captain first, or a mid-level commander first, who may want to look at the plan and agree that that's how we're going to do things, or whatever. He may have specific instructions for your sergeants or something. Then when it comes to your more longer-term problems, like your strategic problems, that's going to be your even higher level. It may not be to your chief, but it's going to go to like a deputy chief or somebody like that, because we are talking about long-term interventions here. We may have to change actually how we do business. We may have to change our responses to certain crimes. We may have to change our manpower or something like that. Or it may be something that we have to spend a little bit of money on to change something, or interact with different agencies or city departments or something like that. So you need that kind of commander level involvement to get some of those things done.
So where do you, back on there, where do you train your commanders to use, or to know which is the appropriate type of analysis to look for?
Well, I think that depends a lot on department and kind of the personality of the commander themselves. I know I have some commanders that they don't necessarily disrespect what I do, but they don't really have any interest in it, and so they just kind of leave me alone. And every now and then I may give them something productive or something useful, and they are appreciative, but they don't go out of their way. And then I have other commanders that they do see the value of it, they know a little bit more about it, and they've kind of learned over time that, hey, I can do some pretty useful things.
I think it's an education piece. I mean, we both now started teaching our newer officers when they come in what we're doing. So hopefully those guys are going to be the sergeants, they're going to be the captains and majors. So hopefully we'll get to see more use.
Yeah.
Because you still have a lot of the guys who are in the higher up positions that are more the old school. You know, they're like boots on the ground.
Right.
We're not dealing with statistics.
Right.
So.
Right.
So now, do either of your departments have your own school where the officers go to get their training, or you bring in trained officers?
Well,
ours goes through the Johnson County Police Academy. So.
Okay.
yeah, and mine, sometimes we get officers who have already gone through the academy, because in Missouri you can put yourself through the academy. So sometimes we get certified officers already. Sometimes we sponsor people to go through like Kansas City's academy or Blue River. And I've found, I don't know if, it's been a long time since I went through Johnson County's academy. I don't know if they do anything in the academy about crime analysis. I know Kansas City and Blue River don't. I talk to my guys and I'm like, hey, what's crime analysis? And they just are like completely blank. They don't have any idea. So she's right. We both do some presentations on what it is. Mine is geared toward how I can help them, what resources I can provide to them, how I can help them find people and find cars and that kind of stuff. And then I ask them for a little bit in return. I ask them for a couple of things in reports and stuff. So it's kind of a a give situation. And you're absolutely right that the goal is that they will learn from the very beginning what it is we can do, and then as they get promoted and they age and stuff, then it'll kind of work its way up to the top.
So for last question.
Yes.
For the listening audience, what would you suggest how would you suggest they go about informing or educating their officers or their hierarchy or their administration about crime analysis? Is there maybe a magic bullet or?
No, there's not really a magic bullet. I mean, part of it is I just put together a brief presentation. It's a little bit like this one, but not as academic because they just don't have the patience for it. It does mainly focus on what I can offer for what I can do for them, how I can supplement their work. That seems to be a big key. Is if I can get a hook into what they're doing and how I can help them, then they're more likely to come use me. And then I think the other thing is it's just time and just kind of winning people over. You just have to have success stories. For example, if I can help you with a particular project and you realize like, hey, yeah, Kyle can really help. That's pretty cool. You may mention it to him, like, he's working on a project and he's stumped or something. You may say, hey, go check out Kyle, see what he can help with you. And you just kind of one by one kind of win people over, and it just kind of spreads like that. And it just takes some time.
That's where I get a lot of my newer new people who come to me. I say like, well, I've heard you're the person who can figure out who belongs in this car.
I get that as well.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So they're obviously talking amongst each other. So.
Yeah, so you just kind of have to win them over one by one. So, you want me to keep going?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So one thing to keep in mind, we've shown all these really cool charts and maps and graphs and all this kind of stuff. Sometimes it's really simple, and sometimes we overcomplicate things because we think it has to be a really neat-looking product. But sometimes it's just as simple as sending somebody a sticky note that says, hey, Sergeant Jones, you need to be aware that we've had 5 robberies downtown at the last call since December. And so this is January 9th. So in the last month, we've had 5 robberies, all with a white male, 5'9", 30s, the red mask. We need to be on the lookout for that. We need to put more officers. We need to, sometimes it's really this simple. It's just as simple as having a conversation. So it doesn't always have to be this super fancy looking graph and map and all that kind of stuff. I mean, that stuff helps and it looks good and it's good to document things like that, but it can be just as simple as well. Okay, so this is a case study from Lenexa. This is a series of armed robberies There was a black male with a mustache wearing sunglasses and a baseball cap, and the Lenexa incident was, it's down here, it was actually 12th in the series, but she didn't know about any of the others. One problem with police departments that we are actively working to try to overcome is that police departments don't always do a very good job about talking to each other. The crooks don't stop at city limits, they don't stop at state lines, they don't care whether they're in Lenexa or Raytown or Kansas City or Parkville. They don't know necessarily, you don't always are aware of when you move from one city to the next. So sometimes some police departments are better than others about sharing information and some aren't. So when Lenexa had their robbery, they had really good surveillance footage of this guy. He was really bold. He did not wear a mask. He didn't even make any effort at all to cover his face. He just had a baseball cap and some sunglasses on, but they had a camera that was by the door, so when he left, it had a really, really good face shot of him. He was also really confident just in his body language. When he went in, there was nobody in the store but the clerk, and a customer came in the middle of the robbery. Now, most of the time, robbers are really they want to get in and out as quick as they can. They're kind of jumpy. They're really nervous. I mean, this is a pretty big deal. They're robbing this store. This dude was really calm and cool. He saw the customer that was walking up to the door, and he told the clerk, hey, just be cool. Just act like nothing's going on. And he just kind of stood over to the side and kind of tucked his gun away. The customer never knew anything was going on. He did not realize at all that the store was in the middle of being robbed. And that's a pretty big sign to us that this dude has done it before, because you're just not that calm and collected when it comes to this kind of thing. So this guy clearly had experience. So she put out an email. Like Sabrina mentioned, we call it the Metro list. It's just an email list. It goes to, 600 or so. Johnson County runs it, but it's like 650 analysts and detectives and cops all over the metro area. I mean, just pretty much any city that you can think of in the metro area, somebody gets it. So she put an email out that had pictures of the surveillance footage and kind of a short description, and she just said, hey, has anybody had anything similar? And I think she got something like 20 responses, 20 different cases, and of those 20, she went through and read all the details and matched up all the MO behavior and determined that she was pretty positive that 14 of them, these 14, were committed by the same guy. So once she had all that data, now she can map all of them out. And I don't know if you probably can't read the labels on here, but the first one was up here, and then the second one was here, and then 3, 4, 5. So he goes kind of like this and comes this way, and then he comes around here. 7, 8, 9 is down this way, and then 12. And then he comes back up here and does 13 and 14. Well, there's a criminology theory that divides criminals into marauders or commuters. Commuters are people who will not offend in their own neighborhood, in their own city. They will commute to somewhere else. So if I live in Lenexa, I'm not going to commit my crimes in Lenexa. I'm going to commute to Topeka, or I'm going to commute to maybe to the other side. I'm going to commute to like Independence or something. Nobody knows me. I'm anonymous. I feel more confident there because I'm not going to run into my next door neighbor when I'm knocking off a gas station or something. Alternately, the opposite side of that is they're called marauders. Marauders do stay in their own neighborhood. They know the neighborhood. They know how to get in and out. They know the stores. They know the traffic patterns. They feel more confident because they do know the area. So they are going to stay close to where they are. But there's going to be a little bit of a buffer. They're not going to go immediate in their kind of neighborhood. They're going to go out just a little bit from where they are. So they may have a home base somewhere. So you got the home base here. They're not going to hit immediately around it. They're going to go a little bit further out. So kind of a donut shape. That home base may be their home. It may be grandma's home. It may be their girlfriend's home or best friends or some place that they spend a lot of time that they're familiar with. Well, this guy, this pattern is pretty clearly a marauder. It's kind of a ring here, so he's not hitting anywhere in here. He's not going further north. He's not going further east. He's not going further south. He's coming back to this same area over and over and over again. So Adrienne put together she put together a prediction on where she thought the next hit was going to be. This was, at this point, it was after her, so we hadn't had 13 and 14 yet. This is the final map, so we hadn't had 13 and 14 yet. And I think her prediction zone was kind of like this. 14 was the next hit. It actually was in that was in the prediction zone, but it was not one of the targets that she thought was kind of the main main priorities or whatever. It ended up being, there was, I believe, some Kansas City officers that saw one of her bulletins, and they stopped this guy in a traffic stop and recognized him on the bulletin, recognized him from the surveillance footage. And he ended up confessing to the 10 robberies. There was a bank robbery in Topeka, and there was like 10 weapons charges or something because he committed them with a gun. So this is a pretty cool case of, different agencies coming together, being able to map it, and getting that information back out to your officers quickly so that they can actually do something with it. You want to talk about the public maps?
Yep. So most of our departments have things. This is crime reports, and then there's raids online, and then this is another version of data map of raids online. Olathe, we have just one that our GIS department put out, but it'll show like for us our calls for service, our crimes. So as a citizen, you can go in, and it's typically done by the 100 block. But you can go in and type in an address and see what's happening in your neighborhood itself. So we used to get a lot of phone calls before these existed about like, hey, I'm moving to Latham, this is the house I'm looking at, is it safe to move into? So now I don't like telling people that's safe because my definition of safe is different than your definition of safe. So this way you can get on, type in your address, you can see what's going on around you, and you can determine if that's safe or not.
Yeah, and they can sign up for email alerts too, so that it will email them. You go back one slide, you can see where this has like a buffer. So they can, if that's my house, I can tell it, email me anytime a crime is reported within this specific district distance, and it'll send me an email. It's a really good way for the citizens to know what's going on in their neighborhood. And then, like you said, it kind of gets them on our backs a little bit. The vast majority of cities in the U.S. use some product like this, so depending on where you live, you may want to look up and see. Raid Online is a really popular one, and crimereports.com is the other one.
I think Kansas City uses the crime reports.
Yeah, Kansas City uses crime reports, so.
It's just nice, and that way, I mean, you know what's going on in your neighborhood, and also there's some transparency for us, so.
Yeah.
Okay. So really, to sum it all up, crime analysts really identify patterns, trends, knowing which crime problems are normal and abnormal. We try to predict when and where the next crime will hit, like in the example that he was giving with Adrian's with the robbery series. Inform patrols, investigators, command staff, and the public what's going on, what we can do. And we work with our own agency members, other police jurisdictions, city agencies, and the public to develop strategies and eradicate problems. I'm going to talk about MARCAN.
Yeah, so like I said at the beginning, we're from this organization called MARCAN. We're a nonprofit professional organization. There's about 120 analysts and investigators. Most of us are in Kansas City, but we do have people in, we got some people in Columbia, Wichita, there's a couple down in Springfield, and we're growing in St. Louis. We're really trying to grow St. Louis now too. We offer a student membership for $15. You can become a member of MARCAN. That also includes a membership to the International Association of Criminalists. That's our parent organization, and I've got a slide on them next. But $15 means that we offer free training several times a year, it's usually 4 to 5 times a year. And we also offer a scholarship to the IACA annual conference. This year it's going to be in Louisville, Kentucky in September. It's for a week. And we offer $1,000 for you to attend that. And we've also got tuition assistance to crime analysis training. There's going to be a couple of classes in St. Louis a little bit later this year that if you were interested in attending those, we have one scholarship that pays the full tuition, which is $400, and the other one offers $100 off. If you want to learn more about us, our website is just marcan.org, or you can email us at our Gmail address there. The IACA, like I said, it's kind of our parent organization. Yes?
On MARCAN, do you have to be a member first before you can get the student rates? We were looking at that the other day.
And I just changed the website yesterday, so it may not have been on there. But
okay.
Yeah, you can sign up for just $15. There's a little drop-down menu for the PayPal button, and normal membership is $40 for the first year and then $35 after that, but it's just $15 for students. So if you have any questions, you can email us that. But it does include membership to IACA. Now IACA has about 2,500 people worldwide. So they have a lot more members, they have a lot more resources we do. There's a very, very active listserv and that's basically just an email discussion where you can post questions. Sometimes it's technical questions like, hey, how do I do, XYZ in Microsoft Excel, or how do I make this map do what I want it to. A lot of times students will post their resumes and ask for people to give them, critique my resume or give me advice. What do you think I should do next?
Or agencies will post.
Or agencies post job openings very frequently, or they'll post internship openings. They do have multiple training opportunities. There's the annual conference, and their address is just idca.net if you have any questions about that. I think lastly, we just have a couple of kind of internship opportunities to talk about. Now, Raytron doesn't have any internships. I've got cups and pens that you all can have. I've got some information. We are hiring for officer, dispatch, and booking technician. If anybody's going to be looking for a job here in the next few months after you graduate, there's some information on salary and benefits and all that kind of stuff. Lenexa PD they are going to be having 4 just general police internships this summer that are paid. I don't know what the pay rate is, but that's better than most internships, and so there's some cards up here about that. Shawnee, Kansas typically has internships. Independence, Missouri. I think they've got an intern right now, so I don't know how many they want to have.
We have a general internship for police. We have an opening for fall. It's non-paid, but it's open through next Friday. So if you need an internship for college or not, that's a good place to go. And then we're always hiring for officers. They do monthly processes. So that's all online at olathe.ks.org, so you can check that out too.
Yeah. So does anybody have any questions or anything?
So we know you're training.
Yes.
You were a police officer.
Yes.
How did you all get into the crime analysis? Did you have specialized training or just tripped into that?
So I tripped into what I thought I wanted to do. I was in Police and American Society class in my undergrad, and it was this little paragraph about crime analysis, and I was a math major. It was crazy before I switched to criminology, but I realized that. But I read it, and I was like, oh, it has some statistics, it has criminology, it's the perfect meld for me. So when I graduated, I tried to get on somewhere, couldn't get anywhere because I had no experience. So I actually interned with the city of Shawnee for about 3 years before I got on with Olathe.
Yeah, and I interned for the same gal at Shawnee, and so did Brian.
Yeah, we all came through there.
Yeah, there's quite a few of us actually that have gone through that. So
It was one of the few places that had an actual crime analysis internship, so it wasn't just general police. But Lenexa's added, Overland Park has
Lenexa has the 4 general ones, and then they do have one that's just, I don't think that crime analysis one is paid, but it is a specifically for crime analysis internship, so.
Right, you want to give about how you got into it?
Well, I thought I wanted, when I was going through undergrad, I thought I wanted to be a lawyer, and then I skipped that. And when I was in grad school, one of my graduate assistants, she's actually the Shawnee crime analyst right now. She was doing her internship with the previous analyst at Shawnee, and then I joined with her, and that's how I got started with that pretty much, and then eventually got hired on to Johnson County.
So recommendations now for any of the students who are thinking about getting into that field, if there's not a class, course, or degree in there, what classes or courses would you recommend they?
Statistics is important. I mean, that's kind of boring, but it's important. I'd say GIS, anything you can do with GIS is really good. Yeah, criminological theory, that's good. Just in general, you need to have strong computer skills, because there's a lot of different software, and you kind of need to learn to teach yourself things. I mean, you kind of need to be willing to troubleshoot stuff. And
Yeah, if you know Access at all.
yeah, Access is
a big
really
thing.
helpful. Access and Excel are helpful, but you won't have anybody holding your hand the whole way through, so you kind of need to be willing to kind of teach yourself.
It is, in that sense, it is kind of a cool job, because, you kind of get to plan your day.
Oh, yeah.
There's things that my chief or my major will tell me to do, but most of the day I come in and it's kind of what I start reading reports, and what I deem is like, hey, this is interesting, I should dig into this. So it's kind of a fun field for that, your day is not the same thing every day, and it's not set by your boss what to do every day.
Right. So.
Any questions? Don't be shy.
Well, I don't see anybody's asleep, so that's a good sign.
The internships, do normally we fill those out online, or should we go to
that's just let me know.
I would go to that police department's website, like, I think, Lennox has got their websites on here. Our website, if you were interested in applying for an actual job, all that information's in this packet. I do have some applications if anybody wants an actual application, but.
All of the lay places as well.
Yeah, for the vast majority of them, they'll all have stuff on their website on how to apply, so. Alrighty guys, we'll grab a pen, grab a cup, grab
Thank you.
some documentation on my
Shut this down. Put a close on that. Swipe down, turn off.